Hello, everybody, and welcome to Level the Field Leadership. My name is Dr. Rachel Gallardo, and I am super excited to be interviewing the person that I'm going to interview. But before we get into it, I do want to say welcome to those of you where this is maybe your first time listening. If this is not your first time listening, thank you for coming back. I do believe that things happen in our leadership roles, and so anything we can do to have tools and resources to be able to help us just be better leaders as a whole is important. I believe that workplace burnout is very real, and anything at all we can do to kind of balance those things out whenever they emerge, it can help us be better leaders, more present for our teams, and then also more present whenever we go home. So let me just go ahead and get right into it. I am super excited to be talking with Jasmine Jennings. I had the privilege of meeting Jasmine whenever she and I were both involved in a leadership development program at the company that we used to work at the time. And we based everything off of the Clifton Strengths. And to this day, she is the only one to have tested with self-assurance in the Clifton Strengths, which I think is super, super fascinating. She's being inducted into an athletic hall of fame from her alma mater, which hopefully she'll bring up in our conversation. She's made big leaps as far as starting her own business and things like that. And so she's really been an inspiration to me in the very short period of time that I've gotten to know her. So, Jasmine, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
And as those of you that are returning know, I do like to base everything off of scripture. So let me just go ahead and say that. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Psalm 27:1. And the reason why that scripture really stuck out is going back to that whole self-assurance thing. You know, if you are strong in self-assurance, you don't have a whole lot of fear whenever it comes to to starting new things or taking a risk or taking a chance. So, Jasmine, I mean, I've kind of stated my opinion of what I think is a strong leader, especially from what I see in you. But in your opinion, what do you think are the key qualities that make people a great leader?
A great leader is a person that can stay calm under any situation that comes you get aligned with. I would say that's one factor. A leader is a person that listens. Leader, the person that uh, looks for, I guess, the whole situation of hearing both sides of the story. A leader is a person that you can lean on and someone that can support you, and a leader is a person that can encourage anybody to basically do anything that they want to do. So I think, I mean, there's so many characteristics of how everyone is a leader, what they do, but I
Hmm.
mean, those factors right there, I think, is what makes a great leader. Someone that's reliable, dependable, and cool and fun, and yet gets the job done. So
Right. Right. Like I can be friends, but we also have policies and procedures that have to be followed as well. Like,
correcto. Like we can laugh, we have a good time for a moment, but we got something we have to do. We need to accomplish. So we're all on the same page of what we're trying to accomplish. We're not trying to stray away from it. We're leader keep everyone
exactly.
in line of where we're trying to go.
Right. Right.
Exactly.
Right. But I mean that's not easy to do, because oftentimes we are faced with really challenging decisions. So, you mentioned a lot of like very complex items that really make up a leader. So, just give us an experience that maybe you've had. Like, how did you analyze the situation, gather input, and then ultimately make the right decision for your team and for the organization to move forward?
Ooh, there's many, let's see, there's many examples. Well, so I would say to be a leader, you obviously it's a skill set, right? It's something
Mm-hmm.
that everyone has to like learn and develop to become. So like here's an example. So like in a leadership situation, say when I was in athletics, when I was at uh I love this in the beginning, the community college of Rhode Island. That's where I started my little foundation of, development to where I am now. And I remember I went in as a freshman and automatically my teammates, I was part of the track and field team over there, they would call me Mama J. I'm like, okay, if that's what you want to do. And like there was like there was like 3 of us. There was like 3 throwers, 3 girls, and then there was like 2 guys, but for some reason, they always felt that like, "Mama J, you like an old soul. You're not like us." I was always the person that stayed calm. I'm always the person that sat back and watched and observed everything. So, like, I remember us going to track meets to be like, "So what should we, like, do?" Like, how like, they would be nervous, and I'd be like, "Why are you nervous?"
Right.
Like, take a breath, relax, go have fun. Let's all have fun. We wanna win. You wanna win, right?
Right.
Yes. Yes, we wanna win. Okay, well, here's what the goal is and what we're trying to accomplish, and let's focus on that. Don't who cares about them? Let's focus on having fun with it. And then
Mhm.
anytime that we all came together naturally to have fun, we'd always do well. So, I think I mean, it's not a I guess it's not a gift that it came to me automatically. I think because I grew up around I grew up in a single mother household, so I was raised by my mom and my grandmother was, like, the matriarch of our family, so everything that she would do, like, I would, like, watch her, and I would always try to be like her. So a lot of my development and self-assurance and stuff is because of her. So I guess being an old soul, like, is
Mhm.
because I was always trying to be like my grandmother, so that's where my leadership skills or leadership style came for her. So a lot of things that I've done afterwards, like growing up wise, it's always because I've always tried to be like my grandmother. So
Nice.
yeah,
Nice. Well, and I mean, to that point when you're like, "Why are you nervous?" Like, that's such a waste of energy, and, like, you need that, especially doing track and field, like, you need as many of those carbs and sugars, and you need all of that energy as much as possible to be able to do the thing that you're actually there to do, and if you expend it all just because of what's going on between your ears, like, that's not gonna help you ultimately reach the goal, and I think a lot of times we waste our energies in ways that are just not productive when we could just focus on what we need to focus on.
we always like learn that you've always kind of set like personal records, PRs, and practice, but always when it comes to competition, most of the time people they get too anxious and nervous on the energy where it shouldn't be focused on, and they lose that with that's why a lot of people have great performance, like you said, in practice, but the performance of competition, sometimes they can't come through because they're not able to really focus on what's most important.
Mhm.
So that's why that leadership role, if you have someone that's there to encourage you and support you and make you focus on the right thing, that brings success. So
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah.
So do you think it's just that inability of people to be able to channel their energy properly that prevents them from finding their leadership style, or do you think that it's maybe a little bit bigger than that?
Bigger. That's not it's always
So what how do people get in their own way of being great leaders?
the I would say sometimes, you know what, we are all set on a journey, right? And so I've been learning, especially for the last, I say 15, 20 years, especially doing sports and athletics and successes now. Sometimes we are not we get so caught up with what's happening right now instead of really enjoying like the journey. Like
Mhm.
the little things that you've developed and the things that you're trying to accomplish in the moment and what you've done before and what you've done going forward. We a lot of times we get caught up of like what we need to do because we're anxious. We're so anxious in the moment. We're like, oh my God, we gotta have this now. We
Mhm.
gotta do this right now. So when you are caught up with being anxious and too energized in the moment, you lose track of just enjoying the journey and letting it happen. Because a lot of things, everything that we do every day is a reflection of like obviously what we did yesterday and what we're trying to do for our future. But sometimes we get too anxious in the moment where we're blocking the opportunities of what's trying to improve in the future because we're not being patient enough, and that's where we lose it. We're not being patient in the moment enough, and that's why a lot of us, and I myself, have gotten caught up where being too anxious, so we just, like, can't get there. But I've
Yeah.
come to learn, like, I had to slow down and calm down, and then just try again, but be calm.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah, and well, I so some of that is because like you mentioned before, trying to be like your grandmother. There's something about the older generation, like they don't get in a hurry. Like they know, and I can't wait until I'm a part of that generation. So I'm not dogging them at all. But get to that point where it's like, look, I'm not in a rush. I've got all the time in the world. I will do it at the timing that I want to do it, very methodical, which to your point can be really helpful. But it also doesn't help either in the society that we're currently in. Everything is immediate gratification. You know,
right.
I can look something up on my phone right now and find out information. I don't have to go to the library, source this, pull out Dewey Decimal that. Like we're in this instant gratification society that kind of conflicts with how progress really and truly is made.
Right. Like, my grandma was a person that grew up in like she was born in like 1927. So she always talks about, you don't go by the windows, you keep the windows covered, because the
Right.
war, the shooting and stuff. And she always like kept like held on to things because she knew that she would need them. And I'm like her, but her, I guess since I grew up with her in her later stages of life, because even my mother talks about she wasn't as calm as she was when she was younger.
Sure. Sure.
But she was just like more appreciative of things and really was passionate and knew exactly what she liked and what she was focused on. So I got to be in an environment where it was very calm and we'd go travel places and we'd meet different people, different cultures, and she'd expose me to a different kind of world, bring me to church and be part of organizations. So she was like very worldly, I would say.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and she I guess that like you said, that generation was different. Like she
Yeah.
definitely was. She was a fighter. She lived to be like 88 years old.
Nice. Nice.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I want to shift just a little bit because I want to talk to you a little bit about conflict. Because as much as we as leaders we do like our teams, there is going to be conflict that's going to emerge. Sometimes people are not going to get along, there's going to be disagreements, whatever. um if you know for a fact that there are two people on your team that are not getting along, how do you go about addressing the issue?
Well, first of all, I well, there's like three ways that I do it. So like one, obviously if there's a conflict with one person, so I go and talk to one person and I hear their side and what's going on. And then I always ask them, "Did you talk to them?" "No, I haven't talked to them." I'm just saying an example. I'm like, "Okay, well, this is what I want you to do. I want you to talk to them.
Right.
Y'all need to
Step
talk to
one.
each other. Step one, let's talk to each other." So I go to the other side and I hear their situation. I'm like, "Did you talk to them?" "No, I haven't talked to them." "Okay, this is what I want y'all to do. And I told this person this as well. I want y'all to come together. I want you to talk about it. And if y'all can't resolve the problem, then that's where I need to come in." I will sit the both of you down and you can tell your story, you can tell your story, and I'll help resolve the conflict and the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like there there's going to be conflict in any situation, but if we don't sit down and confront it or deal with it, it sure turns into something much bigger down the road if you
Mhm.
don't get it when it's small. Cuz it's funny, I was giving an example of this same situation you just asked me. I, I had I had a friend of mine that I was like, "Hey, there's like this little issue here, and I want to address it right now because if I don't address it now, it's gonna show up when I'm like the busiest and in the moment of like say running my business. Like there'll be
Yeah.
20 people outside, and this issue is gonna show up if we don't do it right now." And so we
Right.
figured out in the moment right now, like if this situation is gonna work or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
'Cause
that's just it. I mean, sometimes we don't address small conflicts because we either don't want to or we think it'll go away or whatever. And then if we had just taken care of it right then and there in the moment, then 3 weeks later, we wouldn't have this huge astronomical issue that we're now having to deal with. And then, documentation and now HR is involved and it's this whole big thing. Whereas if we had taken care of it earlier in the month, we wouldn't be where we're at right now.
right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
So you mentioned, your business, and this is, I mean, just one of many reasons why I certainly wanted to just kind of hear your words of wisdom on different topics of leadership. But you took a big step towards your professional goal that you established a long time ago by opening up your own food truck. So share with everyone, like, what was your final aha moment that just made you decide, you know what, I'm going to go all in on this dream that I've been talking about for years?
Can I go back a little bit on it?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
I started?
Tell us the story.
Yeah, let me tell you this story. So I have a company called Arnez Barbecue Seafood and More. Years ago, let's see, back in 2018, me and my husband now, Daryl, he he is like a barbecue pro. Like he's a great cook. But I specialize in like I'm great at like sides, frying fish. Like I could cook too. I grew up with my mother was a caterer when I was a kid.
Okay.
So I used to go with her to catering events or I'd be around what she was cooking. So she'd cook for like I'd see like 150 people, 200 people. She'll do events at her church. Her and my godmother had a business together. Um, so I got to see that growing up. And so years later, 2018, we were working on some other there's my husband there's an entrepreneur, so he's always working on different business deals. So we were actually in Livingston, Texas. There's a casino out there that just does like slot machines. It's called like the Alabama Cashada Tribe. So we
Hmm.
were out there talking about stuff for a slot machine, and we're like, man, there's no like food out here. There's no like you need some like barbecue or something. They were like, yeah, we do need it out here. And they were like, hey, we were like, hey, we make some really good barbecue. You want us to like bring it out to you and like y'all can sample it? They were like, yeah. So we made probably about like a serving of like 150 to 200 people. We fed their staff. So we brought like briskets, we brought ribs, we brought sides out there. And so we gave it to the staff and they loved it. And they were like, oh my God, we're going to hire you guys for our second year anniversary of the casino being open. I'm like,
Wow.
okay. So, like, how many people were feeding? So at first they were like, yeah, like 600. And I'm like, what? Yeah, we want brisket, we want ribs, we want like everything. We want salad, we want beans, potatoes, all that. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, well, I guess I'll figure out how to make this happen. So,
Sure.
so
And
I
then the
helped.
moment you say yes, you figure it out
Yeah,
later.
yeah, we got it. Then we were like, oh my God, what? So we, we drafted up this whole plan and I ended up well, first of all, it's funny, we didn't even have like all the like equipment to do all that stuff. So we had to like buy the equipment. We we had to like rent a truck, had to buy like coolers. And so we like were out here 24 hours before the event. We were like barbecuing like all day.
Yeah.
Like briskets and ribs, like it was like endless. It was the most like endless amount of meat. There was so much meat. So we ended up getting like a custom cake done. We had like a custom like salad. Like I said, we bought all the catering equipment. I ended up hiring like 12 people and like we had like all their aprons done. Like we had our stuff embroidered and we all
Wow.
dressed up very professional. I'll send you the photos you can attach to this video.
Yeah.
Um we we did this whole display. So we lined up all these long tables out there. We had everyone travel out there, and so there was like 12 of us serving all day. It was like an all day event. We had to start at like I think like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning because like there's like staff that keeps like rotating through at night.
Sure.
So we had to serve them all day food. So we
Wow.
we pumped it out, and somehow my first like big event, I guess my years of working at big coffee chain that helped out with our experience. So we were like, "Oh my God." So and they were so happy. We ended up serving 800 people actually because we had so much extra like meat and stuff. So they brought in some of the like local community and stuff to come in and get some food as well. So
Nice.
it was really nice from the tribe. So I would say that was our big like, wow, this is what we are gonna do. This is what I want to do. So after that, it was funny. We were talking about being out there, but then we were like, hey, we want to do something more local. So we were like working with a local like RV park about putting like a little restaurant, coffee shop, and doing barbecue and seafood. And so like while that was going on, everything was good. We were making a plan, and then COVID happened
Mm.
and shut
Lovely
everything down.
COVID.
Yep, sure did. Shut it all down a couple years later. I'm like, okay, so we would do it's funny, we would do like little catering events since then, right? We served like 100 people. We had a little gig at this like I said, RV park where we served like 150 people for like 4 days. So we went out there 4 days and served them. And like I said, COVID shut it down, and we were like, you know what? We should first we thought, hey, we should go buy like we should get a restaurant, but like no, we don't want to do all that leasing and struggle with that. We're like, we should get a food trailer. And we're like, okay, we started looking at food trailers. We're like, dang, these food trailers are really expensive. Really, really expensive. And then he goes, you know what? I could build a food trailer. I was like, what? He was like, yeah, my first job when I was 12 years old, I worked at Ranch King and I learned how to build trailers. And I was like, come on, dude. And then we started putting the plan together. Literally during COVID, we bought the trailer, we bought all the pieces and bought all the metal, and then we started building it. So it took us, it took a little while because we're slow, taking our time, try to maintain just working and living our lives and
Sure.
normal. But instead of buying like a $60,000 to $80,000 food trailer, we built a trailer that it probably it all together now, I would say probably about like 15,000. It cost us
Wow.
15,000 from scratch. So I bought all the equipment like slowly, all the fryers, the
Right.
vent hood, the fire suppression system, the sinks, everything. Like slow, I bought everything. And it's funny because after like COVID or during that time, now all that stuff skyrocketed. So there's no
Sure.
way we would have been able to buy this stuff now. It would be so high. So we've been installing it slowly, right? Building it up. And then during that time I was working at Blend, and then I was also working at Starbucks. So I've always been a person always working multiple jobs.
Sure.
And then he does embroidery and screen printing, so he was working his gig, so we just been taking our time with it. And so it was funny during it's funny, it got to the point where I was at Blend, I was like, "You know what?" I even told my boss at the time, I was like, "Look, I'm sorry, I'm gonna tell you, but I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna really focus on just doing my trailer. Like, this is what I want to do. I'm telling you a month in advance." And she was like, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
And then they were like, "That's cool." But like, "Oh my God, we're gonna miss you." So then in the process of that, I was like, "This is my plan. What's what I'm gonna do?" Then all of a sudden, as at that time I was working at Starbucks for like 8 years. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, they come to me and they're like, "Hey, you should apply to be a store manager." And I'm like, "I don't know." I was like,
Yeah.
"Maybe we should just focus on this." I was like, "Man, focus." No, but then my family's like, "Jasmine, you should reconsider that. It's a good opportunity."
Right.
I was like, "Ah, okay." So then I applied for that and I got the gig. And so I worked as a store manager for 2 years. And so, like, in the midst of that, don't get me wrong, loved my job. It was awesome. I
Sure.
loved all like my customers, loved my partners. I loved everything that I've learned in my development and stuff. But it got to a point where it's like I could not have like my time. I was
Right.
always I was doing a lot of development and improving the store and improving partners, and I couldn't get my time. Like vacation time, I'd get messages, text messaging. My days off, I get phone calls and messages. I'm like,
Right.
okay.
Right. Right.
So it's like when those kind of jobs, you work over 40 hours a week. There's hands down, you'll be working 50, 60 hours a week. So, and I knew I was like, this is something I want to do. I've been passionate for it, and I've delayed it for 2 years. And I was like, you know what? It's time to do this. I'm gonna put my focus towards it. I'm gonna go for it. Cause hey, I'm still young. I'll take my 38 years of life that I'm gonna,
Right.
and I
Right.
gotta, I gotta take a chance. Cause
Right.
that I've noticed the older that we get, the time that you invest in people, like you got to invest in yourself. That's really important for you to invest in yourself. Like if you are building all these skills and you have that urge and you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to go for it. Like if you don't go for it, you're going to miss it. So
Right. Right.
So, and that's what happened. So I ended up leaving Starbucks and I've been running my trailer at the moment. Hey, I work like 3, 4 days a week. I'm relaxed. I'm
Right.
calm. It's pretty peaceful. And then like, I get to have fun like figuring out I do like advertising and little marketing. I go around different businesses, drop off flyers and I have like a little Kate, like I said, I was explaining that story to you about there's a lady I met at HEB when I was shopping for a Thanksgiving meal and and she wanted ribs for Thanksgiving because she didn't trust her, I think her nephew or somebody to make it. So we
Yeah.
made their ribs for for Thanksgiving. She was very pleased. She was like, "All right, well, I'm a book y'all again."
Right. Right.
So this is something, I've been passionate about and wanting to do. So that's why that's the
Yeah.
story of the food truck. So that's Arnez. Arnez
Yeah.
barbecue seafood and more. So we do brisket, we do ribs, we do smoked turkey legs, we have we do fried catfish, fried shrimp. So I even like to add some other stuff to the menu. So sometimes I do like a blackened red fish with like a little Appaloosa
Mhm.
sauce, as crab meat, cream sauce. Sometimes I do dirty rice, mac and cheese. So I'm always
Oh,
trying
you're
to
killing me over here.
yeah.
Oh, I'm
So,
starving now.
so yes, but you can find all that information, of course, on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. So it's Arnaz, ARNAZ BBQ seafood. So
Yeah.
check it.
Yeah. And I'm going to put all of that in the show notes too. So if you're watching this, wherever you happen to be listening to this, all of that information will be in the show notes as well. So you can find it. There's something that you mentioned whenever you were sharing your story that really kind of goes back to what you said before. You had this dream, you had this idea, and you were moving towards it, and then things just kind of kept popping up. So that whole like staying persistent and staying consistent, knowing that it's not going to happen overnight, because you could have done the shortcut. You could have put yourself in $80,000 worth of debt, bought the food truck, and then started doing all these different things. But you and your husband decided to do the slow and steady, knowing that eventually you were going to get to your goal, even if it didn't necessarily look like the way that you intended for it to look like. But imagine all the things that you've learned in the process, the skill set that you've acquired. And I love that story that you were like, oh, sure, no problem. I'll take care of it. And then you're like, okay, how are we going to do this? Like, you didn't let that fear and that doubt get in your way. You went for it. And I think that that's an amazing thing. And I think too often that fear of, well, I don't know how to do this prevents people from just accepting it and figuring it out along the way.
Exactly. And it
So,
like and then I also learned the other factor, like whenever you're trying to build a business, it takes almost like 5 years to establish a business. And most food truck businesses go under because they have overhead. So if you go and buy
mhm,
an $80,000 trailer and you have a note every month, don't get me wrong, there's gonna be days in that trailer where you're not gonna make anything, right? It's slow.
sure, sure,
like like right now, like holidays, some days are like dead, and then some days are like, hey, they're back to normal. But
sure.
you got to be able to get through those times and you got to be able to be, not with the like as much overhead. If you can rock your business with as much low overhead, you can last a long time that way.
Right, right. And that's true for any organization, for any industry.
Right.
No matter what industry you're in, it's always cyclical. So,
Right.
your first year, you don't really know what you're doing. The second year, you can kind of start to see, okay, well, that's the same thing that happened last year. But by the time you get into your third, fourth, and fifth year, you know those trends. You know when you're going to have those pops of people wanting the service and whenever it's going to be a little bit slower. And so you can kind of plan for that whenever you're looking at your finances overall from an operation perspective.
Exactly.
It
Exactly.
just takes a little bit of time. So what recommendation do you have? Like, what do you tell the person that right now, because we're airing this at the end of 24, but you're actually gonna this episode is gonna air like at the very beginning of 2025.
Hmm.
So, and the start of the new year, a lot of people are like, okay, new goals, new year, new me. And that's all well and good until, you get about 2 weeks in and then you're like, okay, no, it's the same old Rachel. Um, so what advice do you have for somebody that maybe is sitting on the fence and really wants to do something differently for 2025, but just doesn't really know what that looks like or how to implement that? What words of wisdom do you have for them?
I would say really, really dial into. obviously doing the research of like what you want, or what, or put yourself in a situation where you like where you want to be. Like, I would say, like, obviously you can't make any big decisions until you really, really know like that's the right choice for yourself.
Hmm.
But I'd say keep focusing on what you really like, and then just stay in that area. Read into it, study it, like be around it. Like, I knew, like, example for myself, like I knew years ago I loved coffee shops. Like, I love coffee and I like the environment of coffee. So I went and put myself in an environment where I was around a coffee shop, and I worked in a coffee shop and loved it. And I was like, oh, well, this is cool. And I kept staying in it and staying around it because I was passionate about it. And the same thing with my sports. I was like, "Ooh, that shot put thing, that looks cool, but ooh, that hammer throw, boy, that looks unique. Let me go over there and go figure out what is this? How do you do it? Like, what's the history of it?" Like, you just keep putting yourself around it where, and studying what you are passionate about. And if the more that you study it, the more that you're around it, the more that you're into it, it takes, sometimes they talk about it takes like a hold of you, right? It just like takes
Hmm.
over you. Like, you're
Hmm.
just like all about it. So keep, if you're not sure what you want and what you want to do, that's okay. Just keep focusing on things that you like, and keep figuring out what you enjoy and what you want to do. That's how I would say.
Yeah.
Try to do it.
Yeah.
My
I mean,
advice.
the time is going to pass anyways. You might as well spend your time doing something that you really love, that you're really excited about, because the passion is what drives you. The passion
Right.
is what keeps you moving forward.
Right. It's all about the passion. It's like, oh, this is exciting. Like, it gives you a little, like, when you wake up in your morning, you're like, oh, let me go check out this today, or let me see how this goes today.
Right.
It's that excitement. Like, we all, like you said, hey, I was telling you earlier, it's all about that journey. Like,
Right.
my journey, my focus of my journey is that food trailer. Like, every day I'm doing something, working on that food trailer. Like,
Right. Right.
like, here's an example. So I had these these custom flags made for this like food trailer, right? And I was like, man, I was all hype about these flags. So I put them up and they look good. And I had a little video, and I like posted them up. And then all of a sudden I noticed in the next couple of weeks, all of these different food trailers in town started putting up flags. And I was like, hold up. Hold on. They're putting up flags too, but it's just like but it's like a compliment because it's like flattery. Like,
Right.
instead of, they saw that something that looked good and stood out, and then now they're trying to upgrade and stand out.
Right.
So I was like, oh, it's flattery. I'll take
Right.
that.
Right.
You
I
know,
see your flags and I raise you Christmas lights. How about that?
that's what's coming next. We're putting some lights up there. Exactly.
Nice, nice. Well, you already mentioned it a little bit, but just to kind of reiterate, I do like to give an opportunity for my guests to have their moment of shameless plug. So, can you just restate again where they can find information about your business and where you're at on social media and things like that?
You can, which you'll be able to post. You can find me on Facebook, which is Arnaz, so ARNAZBBQ on Facebook, but on Instagram and TikTok, you can find me at Arnaz, ARNAZBBQ Seafood. And so you can find me on those channels. I got my website coming soon, so arnazbbqseafood.com. Hopefully by, I would say, January, February, I'll have my website up. So it says
Okay.
coming soon on there.
Okay. All
But you
right.
can find me. I'm located in Belleville, Texas, but I do travel around and I do have catering as well. So if you like brisket ribs, sausage, smoked turkey legs, catfish, shrimp, anything like that, I got you.
Outstanding. And now I'm gonna have to go stuff my face. So
Yep, come on down.
And like I mentioned before, all of Jasmine's social media information will be found in the show notes. If you're not connected to her, like you're truly missing out. I consider her a friend, an encourager, and just great food too. I mean, that's like the best combination. Like having a friend that is motivated, inspiring, and can cook, like that's the trifecta. Um, and just as a reminder, if you liked what you heard, hit the subscribe button to receive new content. Share this episode with someone you know who's on the fence about stepping into that dream role or applying for that position, starting a business, or is maybe looking for somebody that can do catering. When you share the episode, tag me, tag Jasmine so we can follow up with them as well. We can help support them as well. And remember, you are made to be a leader right where you are, wherever you are leading. The things that we talked about today can help you develop the roots of your leadership so you can weather any storm. Jasmine, thank you so much for your words of wisdom. Greatly appreciate it today. And for everybody listening, take care of yourself, take care of your team. You can 1000% do this. And until next time.